Your Excellency Sophie Makema. Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Madame.
Madame? Mademoiselle is plural, yeah?
No, mademoiselle is for unmarried woman.
For an unmarried woman,
Yes.
and you are married, so it will be
Yes.
bonjour, madame.
Bonjour, madame. Bonjour, Joël.
Bonjour. Que faites-vous dans la vie? I began to gamble at I was telling you I began to do a bit of French.
I think you have not studied properly.
I still have a lot to learn. But good to have you here this morning.
I'm here as French ambassador to Uganda, and it's a pleasure to respond to your invitation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's dig right in. The Bastille Day. You get to celebrate it here in Uganda, the French community here in Uganda, and so on. Tell us a bit about this day.
Yes, no, it's not confined to Uganda. It's not confined to the French community. Definitely, it's a celebration. It's a nationwide celebration, and I think an opportunity to reaffirm and reconnect with the founding message of the revolution. It's a time of celebration. It's also generally a time of introspection, precisely matching where we're coming from, where we want to go. And it's a time of entertainment with the hosting communities. And in Uganda, I'll be very pleased to have a lot of your fellow citizens joining me and the French in Uganda tonight.
So as an individual French, what's remarkable for you about this day? What sticks out for you?
I think that, Joel, we have been through last year a terrible year. France having been targeted on 2 occasions by terrorist attacks. The French people going into the streets, walking together, have immediately and strongly demonstrating their attachment to the core values of the French Republic and their aspiration to continue to live in the way their society has been framed. It doesn't mean that precisely there are no challenges, because security, because you mentioned it, the EU development, and global problematics are there, but the French Revolution was a mix of idealism and realism, and was bearing a vision that has to be kept by spirit and adapted to the current context internationally and nationally.
Of course, part of what you will be celebrating as French people is the tenacity of the French people. Even in the wake of terrorist attacks, you people are still tenacious, you're brave and coming out to say, look, our spirit is not broken. But quickly again, to do with these terrorist happenings, some feel we are losing the war globally, and that's why every so often there's a hitting here and there, ISIS and so on, Al-Qaeda and the like. Do you think we are marching up, or are we getting so much of a beating? Some people feel we are losing the war against terrorism. Do you think that way?
I think precisely the war is also in minds, and I don't know if it's so much tenacity that the French, as you asked me about the French nation, wanted to express. I would rather say this is their willingness to live together. And when you measure what were the targets, there were young people, the young group of people, the diverse young group of people. And I think precisely this is what is troubling those who have been perpetrators, that there are society which wants to be and still wants to be open, inclusive, offering opportunities, respectful of the diversity of origin of their components, and I think this is what is challenged today. Definitely, the war is in mind to demonstrate precisely that there is no border there is no fragmentation, and that the French wants to move together. This is also in the spirit that they have approached the Euro 2016, even if the last step was not the most successful one.
All right, let's talk a bit about the relations between France and not just Uganda, but Africa. France did colonize many an African country, and there's the feeling that France still has a strong grip on some of these nations, Central African Republic and others. Every so often you will deploy, of course, to help them out. But also when some of these countries that were colonized by France, when they have trouble, they run back to France. Does that bother you at all? And some will say France has not totally let these countries go so that they can grow on their own.
I think this is not the vision I have of Africa. I'm of a generation of people who saw Africa independent and sovereign since 1963, when you are going soon this week, Kigali will host the African Union Summit. There was the OAU prior to that. So the process of integration, of political and economic integration, is on its way. And France is accompanying this process from a security perspective, from an economic perspective, from a social perspective. Running after France, I don't think nobody is running after France. It's a partnership. We have global challenges to address collectively as a world, as part of the world community. And of course, the response is far from being limited to France. The EU, you mentioned Central African Republic and the Sahel. France has been there, but there has been a strong involvement from the European Union, and this is also a new dimension of the partnership. So the fragmentation between a French, so-called French-speaking and English-speaking Africa is no longer a reality, a contemporary reality. It's a fact of history, but I think people aspire today to other type of relationship. When you consider a country like Uganda at the heart of the Great Lake regions, and you watch around who are the neighboring countries with which they have the most to share. Some are English speakers, some are French speakers, but they are all willing to approach their future economic development in integrated fashion.
Your Excellency, the European Union, as we know it, seems to be changing. Britain just did vote to exit. France is the largest country in the EU. Do you get bothered that there's slowly but surely a disintegration happening? The UK has left, and there are others that are beginning to say, you know what, are we benefiting from this? Does this concern you at all?
It's a reality. It's a concern me. Yes, as you mentioned, well, this is France is part of the EU. Is a founding country of the EU. So, at the very beginning of this project was a French vision. Jean Monnet, Robert Schuman have been those who have shaped the project, and you will remember that this was the initiation was the consideration of our past history. 3 consecutive wars with our German neighbors, and the willingness to open a new area in our relation and to build a future together. So the United Kingdom and the British people have expressed an opinion, and we respect this opinion. It doesn't mean there is no longer any vision and in any impulse in the EU project. This is in the challenging times that statesmen demonstrate their ability to guide and to show the direction. After the referendum, there has been a very strong willingness expressed by France and Germany to meet together to consider what would be the themes or the domain in which EU would most need to move forward in order to continue to be a source of attraction for the European people, and to build the relationship between the citizens of the European Union and their leaders. There are issues which have already been discussed: internal and external security of the European Union, trade and investment. The freedom of circulation is a major asset. The youth. To move forward, you cannot expect to move forward if there is no such support, vivid support from the youth. It's not a new consideration when I say that. France and Germany have put together within the Élysée Traité. We had an opportunity in January with my German colleague to commemorate the signature of this peace and friendship treaty. There are some tools regarding youth which have been put in place to develop, the interactions, to develop the familiarity between the youth of the country. Erasmus, for instance, I'm sure you've heard about that. This university program, European University program, this is precisely where and how you will involve and incorporate the youth from EU in this vision.
Let's talk a bit about the relations between Uganda and France. How would you describe those relations?
I would say that they are blossoming relations, probably for some unexpectedly, because excuse me, there are still the sense that yes, there is some regions of Africa where France is expected, and maybe some others where it's not. It's not the way we see East Africa and Uganda, and it's not the way we've been interacting with Uganda. So blossoming, because we are still getting to develop this relationship, to develop familiarity with this cultural identity, a different cultural identical environment, and trying to allow or create the conditions where Ugandans can have a chance to better understand the way in which the French society live. Economic actors, what are the motivations, political actors, cultural. What I think is a strong connecting link is precisely, I would say, the notion that security is a prerequisite. There will not be development, there will not be prosperity without this. So this is the preconditions, and then having a sense that we are part of a global village, and that we must address and go beyond the national perimeter. When I say that, it might sound a little bit theoretical politically, but I'll give you one example, climate change. This is one of the major challenges that we have all as world citizens to address. There has been this process last year leading to the signing of the Paris Agreement on climate change. Uganda has been one of the very strong partner in Africa, moving forward the process and being involved, because you have these challenges at home. So this interaction between the national and the global level is also something which binds us.
Your Excellency, this morning I was speaking tough against our human rights record as a country when police goes out and beats supporters of opposition candidates simply because they are opposition supporters without any other valid reason, really. And of course, Uganda is a sovereign country. But every so often, maybe that's why you hear the president telling you folks from the West, mind your own business, don't bother us here, we know what we are doing and the like. But do you get concerned as a development partner that sometimes things happen the way they do happen here in Uganda, the clobbering of opposition people, human rights record, which, sometimes look like we are beginning to get okay, then we plummet all of a sudden. You don't speak about this publicly, but do you get to have any kind of engagement with, say, government officials and say, look, as development partners, you've got to iron this out, you've got to put this right, do you?
There are two different levels I feel in your question, Joel, is the position in substance and the modalities, and they should not be mixed up. In substance, we start our conversation by referring to the French Revolution and the ideals of the French Revolution: freedom, fraternity, equality, to create a society in which everybody will not have a position because he or she holds this position from a given fact, socially speaking, but because you are eligible to same opportunities and an equality of rights. I don't say this is where we are now in France. I would not pretend that. It is an aspiration, and this is something that you have to build. And I think this is an aspiration that France not only has for itself, but for the countries of the world, and including Uganda.
So from it being an aspiration, do you get to have, a cogent discussion and say, look, these issues are critical?
Yes, and this was the second half of my answer. Substance and modalities. How do you discuss this agenda? How do you promote? How do you push forward this agenda? This is not necessarily by declaratory statement, by I would say a declaratory diplomacy. It's by interacting with the society, by its leader, by meeting those who have another voice, another vision. And I think this is what I did. If you remember what happens ahead of the election, and what I do together with my EU colleagues, we have some instruments within the scope, the framework of our relationship with our partners, and one of them is the political dialogue. So it is not necessarily because you don't see me in the street demonstrating that I refrain from expressing the views of my country, and again, in respect of the sovereignty of decision of the country.
You talk about sovereignty of countries here in Africa. Of course, France does help many an African country. But again, with the help comes with, let's talk a bit about Libya, where France participated in the founding of that nation, and then the fall of Muammar Gaddafi, which for all intents and purposes was good at the start, that, you know what, this man, he's misrunning this country, let's come in and see how we help. But you look at Libya today, it's fallen apart, and you participated in this. Maybe you should participate in building it economically and otherwise. Look, you went, pounded it, some will say the Western powers, they roughshod over these people and they left it in ruins.
There are certainly retrospectively questions about, and I feel this questioning from African countries about the way in which the dialogue has not probably been sufficiently undertaken between African Union and external partners. Definitely the context was driving, and the context was that a bloodshed was expected. So to what is the appropriate response? Witnessing something that you know will be definitely a source of mass casualties, or acting. There was a mandate, an international mandate to do it. So let's not reverse the history, and also let's not over-focus about this, because yes, you're right, there has been Libya, but in between we had to face the Sahel crisis. And the Sahel crisis, I think, I've clearly, I was at this time dealing with this, the response and the French and the international response to the crisis, and it has delivered, and it has preventing the collapse of a state, Mali, and the potential disintegration of its neighbors, because there has been an incredible partnership within the African countries of the region, France and other partners, especially the EU, as I was referring to earlier. So definitely in the field of security today, there cannot be individual, but a collective response.
Let's wrap up this way. Of course, Uganda and other East African countries are trying to forge a way forward with the East African community. Still having a couple of challenges. Sometimes we look like we, take 3 steps ahead, then we take 4 steps backwards and the like. The European Union, you were the founding nation there, you are the largest. What lessons can we pick from you people, given even all that's happening now?
I would, lessons is, there is no lessons to give, There can be sharing of experience, certainly, and we are so willing to do so. There is, as you know, an EU-AU partnership, and this rendezvous are definitely an opportunity of sharing experience, but the process is the same. Integration, because there are trade and economic imperatives, and a community of how do you say in English, destin, a community of community of destiny, I would say. You cannot impose a process, You cannot impose a process. What in Africa is what I see as a trend today is a willingness to build a future together. So yes, there are obstacles, there are things to organize, to structure in the framework, in the spirit of dialogue, of compromise, so that everybody finds his ways, his interest reflected, but there is already, this is the starting point, a willingness to, a common willingness to build a future together, because there is no other way. Yes, this integration is the denominator between East Africa community and the European Union, but it's first of all a decision to be taken by East African leaders on the modality of this process based on what they know of the aspiration of their people. So this is, I would say, where I see the interest of the commonalities, the interest of developing and sharing about respective experience, but also the limit of this dialogue.
All right. Your Excellency Sophie Makema, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you so much.
And happy Bastille Day. Is that how you wish each other good celebrations that day? How do you do? What do you say?
Oui, liberté. Liberté, égalité, fraternité.
Yeah, those words that she has said. But thank you for talking to us this morning.
Merci, Joel.
Coming up is my opinion.